Hello, this is Katie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for being here with me today. So today I'm going to have a quick look at headpins. So headpins are one of the essential findings. We call findings the kind of mechanisms to join things together in jewellery making. So it's an essential part of a jewellery maker's kit. So your stash will have lots of different headpins, and generally headpins usually have a ball head. You can get fancy heads on them and such, and they come in lots of different colours, lots of different sizes, but a standard headpin is usually 50mm in length and a ball headpin. I would call that your standard, or maybe a flat head on it. Now, what do you do when you're making jewellery and you've made a beautiful wirework piece and your headpin, the colour of it, because gold plating can differ with the amount of gold and such they use, the purity of golds, and different silvers as well, some of the anti-tarnish and such. What do you do when you want your entire piece to match? So maybe you've made a pendant, you want to make earrings to match, and you want these to match. So you're going to use the wire that you've been using, so you know that the colour tone is beautiful and consistent throughout. So I'm going to show you how to make some simple headpins. Okay, so the one we're going to start with is just a basic. You can make this into an eye pin as well, where you can connect to this side. So I'm just going to show you that there. So it's just got that little loop on the end there. And the beauty of making your own also is that you can make them to any length you want. So you can make it so there's no wastage, so you make it the exact length, or you can make a nice long one so that you can utilise the whole length of it, so you're not limited to any standard size. So the next one we're going to make is a spiral one. So that's there. So we're going to make a little spiral one. So very basic, simple techniques. Then we're going to make a little, I call it like a little peacock feather. So it's a little bit more detailed, so it adds more drama to, if you're using this as an earring drop or something, it's actually got more detail on that one. And then we're also going to make a featherweight headpin. So a featherweight headpin is ideal when it comes to kind of the tiny beads. So if you're using a microfaceted bead or tiny seed beads and such, gemstones that have a finer drill hole, your standard 0.6mm gauge wire isn't going to fit through there, so you might need to go down. So this, I'm going to be using a 0.4, but you can also go in to a lower gauge of wire and make featherweight headpins to suit yourself. So the wire that I'm going to be using, I'm going to be using the 0.4, just as I said, to make the featherweight ones, and I'm going to be using a 0.6mm to make the rest of those. So the tools I'm going to be using today, I'll be using 2 pairs of my chain nose pliers. That's mainly to make the featherweight headpin. We'll be using one of them in all the rest of them, and I'll be using the flush cutters and some round nose pliers. So nice basic tools, nothing complicated needed whatsoever. So we're going to start off with the basic headpin, or a basic eye pin. So this has just got a loop on the end. So I've made it quite a tiny loop, so you could call it a head pin, or you could make the loop slightly bigger and that could be an eye pin, so you could actually almost rosary link these together as well. Okay, so we're going to take a length of my 0.6mm wire. It doesn't matter how long you take, you just take what size you want. And then all I'm going to do is going to pop my round nose pliers. So I'm going to get my round nose pliers right at the very tip. So I don't need to worry too much about if it's flush cut or not at the moment, because I'm going to snip this end off anyway. So what I'm going to do is I've popped my pliers right at the tip, and I can't feel any wire coming out on this side, so that's really important. We need to be right at the tip. I'm applying quite a bit of pressure in my hand. I'm not squeezing it so it actually squeezes the metal and distorts it, but I've got enough pressure to hold it. So I'm going to support the wire here, and I'm going to start turning. So I've turned a little bit with my hand and then a little bit with my wrist. I'm going to go as far as I can go, and then I'm going to take my pliers out. So I will have this. Okay, now if we were to look at that really close up, let's see if we can get that to focus there. The very tip of that, because it was in between my pliers and we'd only just started turning, the very tip of that is actually quite straight compared to the roundness of here. So what I tend to do is, as soon as I've made a good sort of roundness of the shape, I go in and I literally cut off the very tip. So just snip off that very tip. It's like hardly anything, but what that will do is it will ensure you get a really good round shape, which comes in even more importantly when we do that little spiral one. So now I can go back in with my pliers and I can continue turning that round, and I'm just kind of turning it against my finger just so that I've got a little bit of control over that. Now if we look at it here, it's more like a 9 shape, or if I turn it this way it's more like a P shape. We don't want that because it's going to be off balance and not sit right. So I've got it's coming all the way around, so it's actually touching the other wire, but I'm just going to pop my pliers back in, and I'm just going to make sure I'm holding them right up to where it joins. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this finger to just push this away slightly so it's more coming out at 90 degrees from the loop, and then we'll have a nice even loop, so it's more like a lollipop now, so it's more like a circle with a stick. Okay, so that's going to give you a nice finish, and it's going to make sure it looks even and balanced in the ear. Okay, and then you can just smooth this out as you need to. So that's our first head pin made. So then we're going to move on to making the little spiral, so that's going to give us a little bit more detail, but again we want this really nice and rounded. So I'm going to grab another piece of my 0.6mm wire for the spiral. I'm going to go in again just like I did, right at the very tip. I don't want to be able to feel anything at this side of it. I'm going to start turning like so, and then I can snip off the very tip just like I've just previously done. Like so, only a tiny bit, just so I've got a really nice round to start with. Put my pliers back in there, and this time I'm going to keep turning, so I'm just kind of moving around with this hand, and I'm going to keep turning. I'm going to trace that wire around the outside of that original circle. So you see there it's coming around the outside of that original circle. Now you will get to a point on this row where you can't go anymore because you don't want to be crushing 2 wires together. So you need to swap over at this point to your chain nose pliers, and we're going to use our chain nose pliers and little movements. So moving here, so little movements, and just grab and turn until you get to the size of spiral that you require. So we've gone there. Now the way that you can make an even pair is by looking at where it starts in the centre and kind of come level with that, and then you know you've got a nice even pair, and you can count the circles around like so. Now obviously we don't want our earring to sit in this direction. That's going to look a little bit strange. So again we're going to go in, I'm going to hold on to the spiral, go right in with the tip of your pliers and grab that wire and straighten it up. So we've just created a right angle at the top of it, and now we've got a nice look to our spiral with our wire that our beads are going to go on coming straight off it. So you can thread your beads straight on, just thread that on there, and you will have a little spiral sat directly underneath. Okay, so that's our next head pin done. So the one after that, we're going to make this little peacock feather. This is my favourite of them all, of this little set of head pins, because it adds a real design feature. So we're going to start exactly the same. So we're going to make that spiral. So we're going to grab our round nose pliers. So start turning, snip off that initial tiny little piece, so we get a really nice finish, and start turning, and we're going to start making that spiral. Okay, and then we're going to come in with our pliers, and we can't go any further, and start turning. So I don't want this spiral to be too big. Okay, so I've got a little spiral there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what length I want here, so this distance here, this little gap here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it, pop my pliers in, and this is what's going to decide, so this width of your pliers there. So I'm going to go around about there. So if you're making a pair, it might be an idea to make a little mark with a marker, permanent marker. It will come off with a little bit of alcohol rub or something. So we're going to go in with our mark there, and we're going to bend across. Okay, don't be tempted to pull it all the way across, because we want this to lay straight. Then I'm going to go in and hold my wire. So I'm going to hold on to the circle, to the little spiral, and up to the top there. And I'm just going to encourage that to come down the side. Okay, so I'm going to encourage it. It will spring back a little. Don't worry about it. And then what I can do is I can hold this and then just guide this around the side, so it's coming all the way around like so. So I've got that shape. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We want our wire coming out in this direction because this would look a little bit strange. Okay, so we're just going to pop our pliers in and straighten that up. So then we've got our next head pin. So that's the next one, and obviously you will make yours in tandem, so they will be the same size. So don't forget to do that marking, that measuring, and like I said when we did the spiral, to get the spiral the same, sort of count the rings of the spiral. Okay, so the last one is the featherweight head pin, and what we need to do for this one is I've got my piece of 0.4 wire. This is probably the most simple technique you can ever do. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loop in my wire. So I've just created a little loop, and then I'm going to take the end and tie a knot. So you might need to use your pliers just to kind of grab the end of that knot, and then you can pull it in. And this is why I said you might need 2 pliers just to get this a really nice tight knot. So we're going to hold it with 2 pairs of pliers and give that a pull. So giving that a pull with your pliers, and then just give the knot a little tap. We don't want to squish it too much. So you'll end up with this little knot design in your wire. And then all I need to do is, because we've actually clamped down on that, not too hard like I said, we've clamped down on that, that is set. We're not going to be able to unravel that. There's no way that's happening. So all we need to do is cut our wire off very close to the edge of the knot, like so. Make sure you've given that a squidge. Make sure there's nothing sharp, so you might just want to grab like a jewellery file or something just to make sure there's nothing sharp. So just work at that a little bit, just so that you make sure there's nothing sharp on the end there. That's fine now. And then you can thread on your microfaceted beads, anything with a very fine drill hole, very easily, and they're not going to come off the end. And they've also got that little design detail because there's a little knot on the bottom. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you want to know how to make things like your earring findings, I already have a video for that on my YouTube channel, which I will pop just above there. So enjoy making some different things with head pins that actually match your designs. The other thing, I just really quickly, I just popped this to one side, I'd almost forgotten about it. So what you can do is sometimes, say you've got a pendant, so this is a straight drill, so this is the hole inside is top to bottom, and this is a 1mm wire. Now we wouldn't normally consider making a head pin from a 1mm wire, but let's just see how this goes. So I'm going to start making a little spiral, so I'm going to start turning this. It's a little bit harder on a 1mm, but we will do exactly the same. I'm going to snip off that end. So snipping that off. So you wouldn't normally buy a head pin in a 1mm that would sort of match everything, and you just don't buy head pins in 1mm, not as far as I know anyway. But this is kind of a really quick way to make a pendant, because you can make that fancy detail. So I'm just working up a bit of that spiral design. So we're going to go with about, let's come all the way around. So I've worked up that spiral design. I'm going to go with the like peacock feather one. So I'm going to go a little bit further on my pliers. I'm going to bring that around. So I've brought that around. I've not pushed it all the way around, I've just pushed it at a right angle. And now what I can do is, because it's a little bit stronger, I might just use my pliers to bring that down a little bit. We want to keep that as sharp as we possibly can, and I can hold them onto here, pull this across. So I've got this little design, And so you can make matching earrings and pendants with something like this. I'm popping my pliers in at the end there, and then I can pop this in and through. And then what I can do is, with this design that I've just made at the end, I can push that forward, so I've actually got a design on the front. So I've got this here, and then I can just go in and with my pliers, like so, I can push that away and I can make a wrap loop. So we'll just do a quick wrap loop. So we want this to be able to make a pendant, so we want a larger loop. So I'm just going to grab the wire right on that corner there, pull this around, all the way around, reposition till I cross over. So we've got everything in place there. Do take a little bit more time than I have done there, making sure everything's perfect. And then we can just wrap down towards the gemstone, like so. And we can snip this off. You might want to just, because this has come away, just kind of turn that in towards the gemstone a little bit. That's better, just so it's not actually poking outwards, so it's turned more in. And then I can snip this off, and I've actually made a pendant with the same design, so you can make earrings to match, like so. So you've got a quick little bonus tutorial in there too. So thank you very much for joining me today for my head pins video. So like I said, all very basic techniques, very doable, but it's amazing to be able to create and finish pieces all using the same wire, all having the same colour tone to the wire. It gives your pieces a more professional look, and you got the little extra bonus demo in there too. So I will see you again very soon. If you haven't subscribed already, please click that bell below and subscribe. I really would appreciate it, and drop me a like. I'll see you soon.